Welcome to today's episode of Life in HD, where we invite special guests to come in and chat with us about human design in real life. And if you're new to this channel, I'm your host, Crystal Alferrero. I'm a human design guide and founder of the Human Design Academy. And today I'm really excited to introduce you to our very special guest, Marcia McLeod, who's a 1-3 emotional generator and a human design and self-confidence coach. So we're going to have a lot of chances to dive into her chart. And we're also going to get to hear about how she's used human design in her life and also to create and build her soul line business, basically. So, Marcia, I'm so excited to catch up today. How are you?
That's fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. And so for everyone that's watching, who is Marcia and what is it that you do? If you could just give us a little bit more about, who you are.
Cool. So Marcia, as you said, is a 1-3 emotional generator, but more over than that, I am a mother to 3 amazing adults, and I am someone who really is passionate about helping ambitious women to kind of find clarity, find ease and flow in their life, and just to boost their self-confidence. And I do that through the science of differentiation, so basically human design.
Oh, beautiful. Love it. And so, I know you use human design in your work now, but tell me about your journey with human design and, how it found you, how you discovered it.
Okay, so, I am the product of first generation Jamaican parents who immigrated to the UK in the late 60s. And so, I was raised by a family that had very strong values in terms of education, in terms of culture. And I never really, I had a very normal childhood in terms of childhoods and how they go, right? But as I got older, I started to have certain struggles. And I didn't, of course, know that they were struggles until I reached a point where, hindsight is a wonderful thing. Okay. So really, I started to understand in my adult life how much my childhood influenced who I was and how I was showing up. And so human design, along with other things that have happened in my life, kind of found me. And it was definitely during a period of my life where I was really at a low point and I just knew that this couldn't be it. I wanted more. I didn't know what the more was. I didn't know how to get the more. I just knew that I was very unfulfilled. I was doing all the things that people told me I should be doing. Parenting the way people told me I should be parenting. I was in relationships that people told me I should be in. None of it felt right, and so I went down this rabbit hole searching for more. And on that journey, I, of course, had therapy. I did Reiki training. I did all the self-help books. I did it all. And the thing about human design, it came to me twice, actually. It came to me once, probably about 4 years ago, and it was just far too much information. I couldn't digest it. Didn't mean anything to me. I put it to one side. But I came across it again, and I then went down the rabbit hole of searching. Again, I didn't understand what that meant, why I would do that, but I did. And I came across you, actually. And, I definitely don't regret that decision. I feel it was the best thing I could have ever done because it made it make sense. And so once I started to understand myself even more, some of the things that I was struggling with back then in my childhood started to make sense. I started to understand, oh, wow, this is why this affected me in this manner, or why I've struggled in this area of my life. It was like a light bulb for me. And so now I was in this situation where actually I want to help other people who are struggling. I've always been a natural mentor. Yeah. I've always been someone that people come to, and I never understood why that was, right? So that's, basically in a nutshell, well, a long nutshell, that how human design found me.
I love it. I mean, it always finds us. I love how the seed's always kind of planted. I have the same experience of, coming across it or being introduced to it and being like, ooh, this is way too much. I don't know what this means for me. But then, it opens up a whole new door when we are facing certain challenges or certain crossroads in our lives. And I feel like that's a shared experience for a lot of us that discover human design. But through your light bulb moments that you've had, is there anything that stood out to you that you didn't know about yourself before and now you're like, oh my God, like how did I not see this?
I think the major thing for me was growing up, my parents always told me children should be seen and not heard. Yeah. And I just believed that I didn't have a voice. I didn't have any reason to speak, and that no one would ever want to hear what I had to say. So to find out that I have what is called a defined throat center, and that I absolutely am designed to have a consistent way of expressing myself, and that, part of my purpose is actually to speak and to empower others, was like a big thing for me. It was a huge.
Yeah. So Marcia is on the right angle cross of explanation. So, I feel like that has probably been a huge theme in your life coming into that, and, being comfortable with, sharing your insights and responding to the right situations and people to share these with. Has that been a hard process for you, or is it something that over time it just got easier?
I think if I'm honest, there probably were moments in my life where unconsciously it was happening. And I think now that I understand it's part of who I am, I do still struggle sometimes to show up, because it's not, it's a natural gift that I'm leading into. So, there are days I'm really super comfortable, and other days I might overthink it, and then, it doesn't flow in the way that it is possible to flow, is what I'll say, because I do know that I have a very powerful way of hitting the hearts of others, but I need to trust that. So it's been a challenge.
And she does have her channel of structuring, the 4323 unconscious, so that makes total sense, right? And I think I'm really happy when I have people on the show, on the series. I don't even know, do you call it a show? Right, let's just pretend I have my own TV show. All right, it's a show. I'm the new Ricky Lake. But basically, I love having people with 4323 come on, especially when it's unconscious, because we get to witness you firsthand, having your genius to maybe freak moments. But again, as we go into it, I know that there's a lot of stuff for you to share with us. And so kind of going back into your childhood, I know you mentioned that you had a pretty normal childhood growing up, but did you notice, aside from maybe your parents telling you that children are not meant to be heard, or, seen, is it seen or heard?
But seen, they're supposed to be seen, but not heard. So basically, keep it quiet.
Yeah. And so I guess as a generator, was there anything other than that was challenging for you in your childhood, in terms of trusting your gut, maybe trusting your response? You mentioned that you had a very kind of academic background, very, I guess, a value in your home was education. And so making a lot of decisions logically, was that something that was more common, or? Yeah, I know.
Something that was enforced. And, I guess I wasn't really encouraged to do things that lit me up. I was just encouraged to do things that were going to get me a well-paid job, or, was going to give me a level of security. And so I would have just gone along with that. And I did just go along with that. I definitely didn't feel connected to my inner knowing. That wasn't something that was encouraged to grow, really. I've always had it, but I wasn't conscious of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I've always felt things, but then pushed it away because, well, why do I feel like that? But, oh, well, move on. It's not what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do because this is what society says. And this is what my parents say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure that ended up resulting in a lot of frustration at certain points.
Of course, because I then studied things that I didn't enjoy. I did careers that I didn't enjoy. I then went on to live my life in a way that I didn't enjoy because it just didn't feel right at a core for me. But trying to articulate that to someone who has very strong values or sees the world in a certain way, it's virtually impossible, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's one of the most challenging parts, to feel like you have to justify your decisions logically that don't have any logic behind them, right? There's no logical reasoning to them. But, in learning about your gut response and learning about your sacral, how do you experience yours? Because you do have, okay, first of all, your sacral is unconsciously defined. So, a lot of people with unconscious definition in their sacral sometimes don't really notice it right away, or it might take a little bit of time to really tap into. So what is that like for you, and how was it, learning to notice it and feel into it?
So I think it's always been a feeling in my lower stomach. Sometimes it will present as goosebumps as well. Like I'll have a real, like I just know that, okay, this is what I think it is. But I used to, as I said, ignore it, right? And I would also feel things about people and I couldn't explain why. So I would question myself a lot. Like, is there something wrong with me? Like, how can I feel all this stuff? And I would push it away. I really would. And I think understanding that is actually what I need to lean into now, because that's what will govern my more aligned decisions. I just go with it now. So maybe I will put something out there intentionally and wait for that sign. And when that sign comes, I will go with what I feel. And I won't necessarily, because I'm emotional, so I won't necessarily go with it in that moment. I'm also more confident to say, well, actually, can I get back to you? I need to think about it. Whereas I never would have done that before. I would have just felt pressure to give an answer in that moment. And usually then it would end up being the wrong decision. More often than not, I would end up doing things that I shouldn't have done.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm sure, being an emotional authority, one of the biggest challenges is kind of being pressured by others to do things quickly, or even by your own conditioning to just make rash decisions. And so what words of advice do you have for people that do have emotional authority that struggle with the idea of waiting? Maybe they fear that if they wait, they're going to miss out on an opportunity or whatever that thing is. Like, what would you have to say to someone that's struggling with this?
I would say that opportunities are not running away, first and foremost, and the right opportunities will actually wait. They will wait for you, and you have to trust that feeling is what is going to guide you towards that. And I do understand it's not easy to lean in, especially if you're feeling that pressure, but just start to lean into the fact that that is actually right for you versus what's right for everybody else, right? Because maybe that person wants that answer, but if they really want to work with you or they really want to do whatever with you, then is a day really going to create that much of a, if it's going to make you feel more comfortable in your decision, then I don't think that that's too much to ask, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like that it's really all about making decisions from a place where we're not under that sense of urgency and like fear and, oh, like we need this like right now from this place of attachment. And so was that a learning curve for you to let go of, how do I say this, but let go of that urgency and that fear of like needing to do things now? Was that hard for you?
Very hard, because I've always lived my life in a way that I felt pressured and I just had to do things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely difficult. I'm much more comfortable with it now, because I think if somebody can't wait, or then I accept that that's not for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I release it. But it's definitely been a process. It wasn't so straightforward before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. What would you say, like, so you worked in the 9 to 5. And so what would you say to people that are like, okay, well, I have a boss, I don't work for myself. How do I set these boundaries with people and say, like, okay, well, I know that we have something going on, but I just need a day. Like, how do you communicate that to your boss without, sounding like you're trying to evade your responsibilities, basically?
Well, that's a great question, because another thing that I've started to do is actually tell people what I need.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more confident to say, you know what, this is what makes my life more comfortable. It makes things easier for me. So I just don't do well if I have to make decisions in a short amount of time. So could you just give me, when you need a major decision to be made, could you just give me, I'll give them a heads up, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of how,
Disclaimer.
yeah,
This is how I work.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because
So important.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Setting those expectations. So that's really key, right? And maintaining your peace and your sanity and your satisfaction in whatever it is that you're doing, right? So I can imagine that being a really fun process to do. But again, it
And
becomes natural.
especially in I'm single at the moment, but I'm dated, and I'm even finding myself even in that situation, sort of just saying, look, explaining who I am at a core and what is going to make the connection flow. And that is so empowering for me, to be able to say how I am, and to give them the autonomy to understand that, so that they can also, work with me, and I can work with them,
Right?
because then I want to understand you at a deep level also, right?
That's such a
So I just think
gift.
my interactions are much better generally.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a gift to, first of all, know yourself so you can communicate with others what it is that you need. And you're not playing that guessing game of running around in circles, trying to figure things out blindly, right? Saves you so much time and headache. And right.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And I see, like, also in your design, you have your triple split, and we say in human design, triple splits sometimes need time to process information, to make big decisions. So on top of you being an emotional authority, also having that triple split, how does that work for you? Like, have you experimented with sampling, auras in public spaces to help you move through things?
So I think before, I was definitely unconsciously doing it, because I used to like beat myself up. I couldn't understand why I couldn't come or arrive at a decision like everybody else, right? So now I understand that's part of my makeup. I'll go to public places. I'm actually really leveraging on, I might say to someone, look, sometimes I need a little bit of inspiration, because this is the way that I am, sometimes my thoughts are all over the place. So if I have a little bit of direction, it can help me. So yeah, I'm out there sampling.
I love it. So anyone who has a triple split, go out there and sample and move through things and see what happens, and see, what things come to you that you end up with, especially if you're a generator MG, what you're responding to. Sometimes you might get the signs that you're not even expecting.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you a bit more about how you used human design to build your business. Because I know, you are using human design as a coach, you're a self-confidence coach, human design coach. So yeah, I guess where did you start with using human design in building this business?
So as I mentioned before, that, it first began with me, right? So human design was definitely a way I could understand myself at a core. And I have been a coach for a while, and maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I created a course that was going to help women, find their purpose. But for some reason, I never really put it out there. Something was missing for me. I didn't know what the something was. It just didn't feel right. And then when I became a certified human design coach, practitioner, I then started seeing how this could work, how I could actually it was almost like the part of the jigsaw puzzle, because now I have this tangible tool that I can show people why they struggle, right? So I kind of recreated that course, and my main focus for using human design is to highlight where you're most susceptible to conditioning, because that for me was the big haha. It was where I had my biggest transformation, because when I understood that, I let go of a lot of stuff.
Yes.
I could start to, unpack a lot of things. So I can see that it's not even about purpose anymore. It's about helping these women who are, for all intents and purposes, and I say ambitious because, they have stuff going on in their lives, and they are showing up, and they're the people that you might least expect to be struggling, actually. But they are struggling because something's missing and they don't know why that is. So when we look at the chart, and I'm asking very pertinent questions, it's now unraveling a lot of things we can now, start to work on and start to work through the deconditioning process and kind of take it from there. So that's really how everything evolved.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of like hand in hand with the whole concept of human design that, in terms of our purpose and living our purpose, it's not something that we necessarily need to seek and, struggle to search for, but it unravels as we discover ourselves and as we live as ourselves. So that's exactly kind of, I'm going to say, very much in line with.
Very much. Very much. I feel like
Right?
after I worked with you, I knew I wanted to build my business. And of course, I put that out there, and I found an amazing mentor who helped me to craft my offer, right? And that's another thing for me from an integral perspective. I don't think I could ever work with anyone ever again that doesn't utilize human design, because she utilized human design to help me tap into my unique gifts and to show up in my unique way. And so I loved that. And that really worked for me, So yeah. And I think that's why things didn't work for me in the past, because they weren't personalized.
Absolutely. And, I feel I agree with you. It's like, it's that piece of the jigsaw puzzle that is missing in a lot of, whether it's coaching programs or just any kind of where you're a service provider and you're working with other clients, and without the human design piece sometimes. And again, it's not to say that everyone that doesn't use human design isn't aware of these differences and nuances in their clients, but it just brings everything to the surface. It takes all the guesswork out, not all the guesswork out, but it takes like most of the guesswork out, and it gives you something to pinpoint and talk about. It's like a conversation piece, right? But yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. And so in your process and learning about yourself, and especially like strategy and authority and how you make decisions, how has your strategy and authority, learning about your type, made you a better business owner and a better leader for yourself and for others?
I think the biggest thing for me has been, I think historically I spent so much time not being myself, okay, and understanding that I simply just have to be myself in all aspects. So just leaning into that has really helped my business, because the things what I was focusing on before, honestly, people aren't interested, in my particular case, in the beautiful Canva posts. What they want is the real deal, the essence of who I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
Share my story. And when I do that, it always blows me away, because people are just like, oh my God, you're so inspiring. And I'm like, really? I just shared my story.
Like, I love
my story, but I'm realizing it really is that simple, Marcia. Just do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's just enabled me to show up as who I am.
And then from there, it's like the right people come in, and it just facilitates that whole process. And I can resonate a lot with that. You don't have to complicate it, right? When when it comes to building businesses, it's like, I remember at the beginning learning from all these different gurus and, experts, and I was afraid to ever kind of make that decision for myself, even though it's like I was presented with all these different possibilities of how I could build my business. But I'm like, if I don't do it their way, then I'm not going to be successful. And the one thing that I've learned, especially through human design, is that if your body, like if your inner authority, if your self does not feel in alignment, does not feels this kind of physical resistance towards something, that's a sign. Don't ignore that. Yeah, exactly. Right. And
as you said, to your earlier point of, even though that may not make sense to everybody else, just trusting that's what your strategy and authority is, and that's what you need to really lean into if everything is going to be with the flow, right? So not everything, of course, for sure I have challenges, right? I do.
Yeah.
And I would be lying. And I don't ever want people to think, oh, because I discovered human design, now suddenly everything in my life is perfect, because it really isn't. But that awareness of self has made a massive difference in my personal business life.
Absolutely. And I know you're working on something really big that's going to help a lot of ambitious women, especially, that are trying to live their purpose and, find meaning in their work, find satisfaction in what they do, find success in what they do, peace, surprise, all of that good stuff. So, tell me a bit about what you're doing right now, and, how you're supporting people through this process. Cause I know there's so many people watching that are kind of going through the same limbo, you know, that, let's say we've been going through the grind of life, and then all of a sudden finding ourselves like questioning, okay, well, what am I doing here? Does this really bring me meaning and purpose? Right. So how are you supporting people in this situation?
So I've created a program called Direct Her, and it's an 8-week group coaching program. And one of the reasons I created it as a group coaching program as opposed to a one-to-one is that I feel there is a huge amount of benefit from just working alongside people who are going through a similar challenge, right? It's a very compact type of container, in that I don't have many women in it, because I do want it to be personalized. And so through this 8-week process, they have a journal that's dedicated to the program. They work through a number of issues which are highlighted through their human design. So again, as I said, there's a lot of work done around your conditioning, the limiting beliefs that are surrounding that conditioning, and sort of just then reframing those and seeing how we can tap into your natural gifts, your natural talents, and give you some clarity and direction, and a better sense of who you are. Yeah, that's essentially what that is.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah. So I will leave all of Marcia's information in the description down below. So I definitely invite you all and encourage you to reach out to Marcia if you find yourself resonating with her energy, with her work. She is just an incredible being, like love her energy. She has beautiful energy. And so, yeah, definitely reach out to Marcia if this is something that would benefit you. And actually, I guess before we wrap up, I always like to ask this question, but what is your favorite quote or mantra?
Okay, so I think my favorite currently, because that changes, but currently it's one by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it is to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh. And it's very much in alignment with human design.
Yes.
Right.
And it actually in alignment with my journey too, because you know, I know it sounds so cliche, but so many of us spend so much time being everything other than ourselves that, yeah, when you do finally understand who you are and how easy it can be, it's transformational.
Yeah. Letting go of everything that you're not is a gift, definitely. And yeah, so I wanted to thank you so, so much, Marcia, for being here with us, for sharing your journey, for sharing all of the insights, you know, especially being an emotional generator. There are a lot of emotional generators out there. And a lot of them, again, are in very similar situations. You know, they're not connected to that response. They're not connected to their response and living their path of satisfaction. So I'm really glad that, you know, we have more insight around what this looks like. So thank you so much, Marcia, for
That's
being
my
here.
absolute pleasure. Thank you.